Okay, cool. So, welcome to these casual, off-the-cuff conference organizing chats that I've been having. Um, you are Adrian Marin, the organizer of Friendly RB for the past couple years, and I guess to just start us off, I'd love to hear about your first conference, how that came about, like maybe why you started it and how it went.
So the first edition of Friendly, that's an interesting question. So that happened in 2023, and in 2022, I went, I think, to my first Ruby conference. It was Wrocław RB in Poland. I went before to different web conferences and different technology conferences, but this was the first Ruby one, and I quite liked the vibe and the community and everybody who put together that whole event and that whole experience. And then, of course, I knew about RailsConf, I knew about Yuruko, the big ones, but I didn't know a lot about the smaller conferences. Rails SAS, I think the first edition was in 22 as well in September. And being 2022, 2023, there weren't as many conferences around because it was after the pandemic. So many of them, shut down. We didn't even like we didn't know exactly if they'll ever come back or anything. So it was, a little bit of a gray area. And, I just tweeted like, hey, if I run a conference in September in Bucharest, would anybody come? And I got a lot of interest in that. A lot of people said like, yeah, how much, when, who's coming, get it. And then I got to talk to more people. I spoke with Andy Kroll and some other conference organizers to like, try to figure out, hey, is this feasible? Is this something that I could do on the side? Because I'm not, an event organizer
Mhm.
and I don't have, a team and everything. It's not just me. This is another thing. I'm not the only host of Friendly RB. I have four other friends, but we're not like this big team of like I don't have like 50 employees that I can just throw on a conference. So I had a conversation with a few people. I had good positive feedback on Twitter, and I said like, what the hell? Let's just do it. There aren't so many conferences around, so let's just let's try and make this like a very memorable one. A small one, but very memorable.
How big was that first one? How many people came?
So one of the things that we wanted to do was I wanted to make it as professional as I can. So as professional as I can, without making it like on an enterprise budget because we don't have that. I was like I knew that not we won't have a lot of sponsors like I hoped, but we kind of knew like nobody's gonna like everybody told us like like nobody's gonna sponsor the conference now. Maybe they'll sponsor you because they know you. So we wanted to have a swanky, like a nice, a nice place, a nice venue, and we did find an independent theater which had a club nearby, and it had like very plushy seats, and it was very dark, and it has like this nice wooden stage and everything, and they had like projector and mics and everything you needed, and then the club was looking amazing. So that was kind of the place where people can get out from the conference and go there. And the only thing was they can only host 130, 140 people if they like add another row. So 140, that's a big, it's a hard stop for us.
Hmm. And did you fill it up that first year?
Yeah, actually, we sold out. I think we sold 140, a little bit over 140 tickets every time. Not everybody showed up, but yeah, like both editions we sold more than I think 130 tickets. Yeah.
Wow, that's pretty awesome. I feel like that's actually an anomaly in a lot of the people that I've talked to when their first conference, like, when if you don't already have a following, it can be hard to sell tickets that first time when nobody knows who you are. Did you have any sort of like online presence before that people kind of knew who you were, and so that's kind of how you got more people to come, or
A little bit, like a little bit of an online presence, but nothing big. Like even now on Twitter, I think I have 2,000 followers or something, and then maybe I had 1,000, so
Mhm.
not a huge following. But what I did, I went and toured a lot of the conferences in Europe, like most of them. I think I was going to a conference every month, and I was meeting people. Like I spoke to at a few conferences, maybe one or two, but I was going to them and like, of course, as a research as well, like want to see like what do people do, what the Ruby people love, at the conference in an event. And then I started talking to people, like, hey, I'm running like a boutique conference, and I told them like, hey, if you want to come and hang out with cool, nice people in a nice city and learn something about Ruby in the fall, that's perfect. Friendly RB is just for you. And I think that's why, maybe that was the half of our success. Another good thing that happened is that a company from Spain, they had their company retreat in Bucharest at the conference. So that was like about 25 tickets or something. So that
Oh,
was just
nice.
awesome whenever they filled in. That
Yeah.
was just great to be able to host them. So that's a good chunk of everything. But I think the gist was that I was going and talking about it. I was going to other
Hmm.
conferences, and I was speaking about what I wanted to do. And as a result, we only had maybe 20 people from Romania in our first edition. All the other people were from, international, from other places. So that
Awesome.
was, it was a very big surprise for us. I think the name had something to do with it. It's
Hmm.
friendly RB. It's like, and it really attracted only the friendliest people
Nice.
at this event.
That's cool. Do you know like what kind of percentage were from Europe versus from like Americas?
So I think a big percent, like maybe 80% were from Europe. And then we had people from the United States, we had people from Australia, we had people from Brazil, we had people from Kenya. So like
Hmm.
all over the
Nice.
place. We actually had whenever we you bought a ticket, I think this still stands. Whenever we buy a ticket for friendly, we ask like, where are you coming from? What
Uh,
country? Which country? And then we go on the website and we add the flag somewhere in one of
oh,
the
nice.
sections, and it said like something like,
Yeah.
hey, like come and meet people from 30 countries or something. 22, I think 24 we ended up with
Yeah.
in the end. So that was awesome. I haven't seen that, being made in other places, other conferences, but I thought like that would be cool. Like I want to see who's coming, like, and
Hmm.
um and we had people from all over.
That's really cool. Did you do any like besides doing the tour and just talking to people, which obviously works really well. Did you do any other marketing that first year, and has that changed over the years at all?
Not that much. Like I tried. We did a little bit of a guerrilla marketing. So we posted on Twitter things like, photos from Bucharest, because it is a very nice and beautiful city. So we had like, beautiful photos that we posted like, hey, let's come, and like whenever like we're gonna have this activity here, because this is another thing. We wanted to make it special. So for example, like between day one and two, at the end of day one, I hired tour guides, and we split people into groups and we did walking tours. And that was just, it's a great opportunity to like, get together a little bit and walk through the city and learn about the history, learn about that place. And we advertised for that. And then on the third day, we advertised like, hey, we're gonna go to the mountains. We're gonna meet, on the third day, like in the at the train station. We're gonna get on a train, 2 hours to the mountains. We're gonna visit some castles and some mountains, and we're gonna eat like very traditional food, and then we're gonna come back with in the evening with the same train. So that was a little bit self-serve. Like in the second edition, I think we charged for that so we can buy the tickets for everyone, and stuff like that. But we try to advertise the things that it's going to make it special,
Hmm.
like the speakers and some other things. But it wasn't advertising,
Sure, yeah.
paid ads in the paper.
Right. Yeah. Did you how did you get speakers that first year? Did you have a CFP or did you reach out to people?
Oh my God. That's a very good question. So right before we announced the actual conference, um, I reached out to a few people, very influential people from the community, and a few were able to come back to us with a yes. And one of them was Javier Noria, and he was the keynote speaker at RailsConf the previous year. And he has like a very heavy name in the community. And when
Hmm.
I told him what we wanted to do, what kind of conference, what kind of event, and it's all for the community and everything, and we'd love him to come to the conference and speak. He said like, yeah, sure, count on me. You figure out the details. I'll just come. And that really gave us the trust and okay, we can do this. If we have Xavier here, like that's going to be wonderful. And we opened with two speakers, Xavier. Like another thing we wanted to do. So this is something that and Andy Kroll told me. Like I asked him at some point, like, would you like to come and speak at Friendly? And he said, like, yeah, I'll come and speak, but only if it's not like an all white male, speaker,
Lineup. Yeah, yeah.
lineup. And then everything clicked for me, like, oh my God, you're absolutely right. Like it's so easy. It's so easy to make it like, an old male, middle-aged white.
Uh-huh.
It's so easy to do that. And we were lucky enough to have people, very like influential people from the community wanting to talk. I know why, because of the name or whatever. So we had like Jeremy Smith. We had Jason from Code with Jason
Hmm.
podcast, and and a few others. Like I'm blanking out on the names right now, but a few other influential people. So we were like, oh my God, what's happening? Like everybody like wants to come. Like perfect, let's do that. And we had a little bit of a half and half lineup in the first year. So we had like a few very famous people and some new comers to the stage, because that was another thing that we wanted to do, is to actually bring new people, because my first speaking gig was like a year previously, and I know how
Hmm.
difficult that was. And we are trying to bring new people to the stage, and give them the microphone so they can start their careers, and and kick it off, and
Yeah.
do their own things as well.
Yeah. Did you do anything like honorariums or did you help pay for the travel and stuff for the speakers? Because that can get very expensive, especially with people coming from, across the ocean. How did you do that?
Yeah, so what we did was we knew that we're not going to have the big sponsors with us.
Mhm.
And we also knew that conferences, like, respectable, like pretty good conferences, or the ones that have the means, they pay for, at least the stay, or for the travel, or for both, or whatever they can. We couldn't do that because we didn't have the money once, and second of all, like for 2 days, that's twice as many speakers from like one day, and the math doesn't really add up if you're not like a big conference. So if you have like one day that's probably what 6 or 8 speakers, that's a different, versus like 12 or 16. I don't know how many, 14 I think we
Mhm.
had in total. So we couldn't do
Wow.
that, but we said something else, like, okay, we're gonna give everyone $300 or euros or something, and you can
Hmm.
do whatever you want with it. It's gonna be cash. That's what
Yeah.
we can do. And at that point, I think RailsConf, or like a big conference, was offering 500. And I said like,
Hmm.
hey, if they're like the big conference is doing 500, we can do 300. Like it's
Yeah.
at least, a good amount of money. And if you're like, savvy, like it's not a lot of money, but in Romania, like you could get like you can pay the hotel, and maybe the flight as well in Europe, because the low cost
Hmm.
flights and everything. So we did that speaker honorarium. We have an amazing speaker dinner. This is another thing. We had so in the first year we went to a very nice traditional restaurant. Where like at some point people come and do like traditional dancing and everything, and amazing food, vegetarian and non-vegetarian. Like we wanted to have like an amazing experience for the speaker. So that was a great opportunity for us to get to know them a little bit better, for them to get to know each other better, and be more familiar and a little bit like unwind for the
Hmm.
whole thing. So speaker honorarium and the speaker dinner, and I think we gave them a small swag bag. It wasn't like
Nice.
everything anything big, but it was a good, nice one.
Yeah. Um, so speaking of sponsors, did you have any that first year, and how were you able to get those?
Oh, that's a funny story. So again, you kind of wing it in the beginning. This is what we
Hmm.
did. We kind of went to different conferences and we checked like, okay, what kind of sponsorship packages they offer? Like, booth, no booth, logos, big logo, five logos, five, postings on Twitter or social or whatever. And at first we had kind of those packages of, I don't know, 1500, 2500 for 4500. I think we kind of like stole them from Blue Ridge Ruby because they did like, they had an amazing display of them. Like it seemed that they thought it out.
Hmm.
And it kind of seemed that we're kind of like the similar size of conference. And for the first few months, nobody said, like, we tried to reach out to a lot of companies from like big Shopify and GitHub to smaller ones and everything. No, nothing panned out. And then Lucian had this idea of like, hey, what if we do like one package? It's gonna be, I think it was 1200 $1,250 or something like that. We said, okay, it's called community. It's pretty affordable, and whoever wants to do it, let's do it. We're going to have like only 10 spots available. Everybody's going to do the same. And we had five companies slash people that wanted to get in on it. So it was Andy Kroll, it was Evil Martians, it was Nick from Trailblazer. Who else? And I'm blanking out again. And a few other company and two other one from Romania and one Flagrant from the US. You
Hmm.
might know them. And Flagrant, they just use the Stripe link, and that was amazing. Like in the morning, I check my Stripe account. Somebody sent you some money. Like, oh my God, why did you do that? Like, we think it's you're doing a nice conference, a nice event, and we wanted to help out. And no, it's $1,000. That's not a lot, and
Wow.
and it worked. It really worked. So we had like five sponsors of $1,200 dollars for
Hmm.
each one. So we made it work. Let's call it that we made it work.
Yeah. Do you think that the change was just making it simpler, made it easier for companies to say yes? Because before they were just overwhelmed with choice and they were just like, I don't want to think about it. Is that what changed?
Maybe, yeah, maybe that's one way of putting it, but it's also affordable. Like it's $1,000.
Hmm.
Like if you're like a good enough paid developer, you're probably gonna make like 4,000, 6,000, 8,000 per month, whatever, depending
Hmm.
on. So 1,000, it's not that much. So we kind of hoped, we kind of have like, how Andy did it, Irina from Evil Martian, like, it's very affordable, and people and organizations that believe in this thing, believe in the community, it's just going to be like, okay, $1,000, I want to pitch in. Like it's not that big of a deal. When you have like, okay, it's 1,500, then it's 2,500, then it's 4,000, and which one should I take? Because this one would be
Yeah.
better, but we don't have like, but making it simpler and affordable, that was, I think, the why it worked.
Interesting. Yeah, I'm kind of I just got my venue and I'm thinking about sponsors now and I'm doing that thing right now where I'm like, what packages do I need to have? What do I name them? Like
Yeah.
like all
Yep.
the
I
different like,
know.
ruby, gold, all that stuff. And I'm like, but I really like the idea of just making it simple. And I feel like, to be honest, companies don't really care what the name of the sponsored
Yeah.
package is, or they just a lot of them just want to support the community or get their name out there or be there, have a presence for hiring purposes, and yeah, maybe just simplifying it, especially the first year if you're doing a lot of the work as a single person or just splitting up the work. I feel like that might be an interesting strategy to take. So I might steal that. That's pretty interesting. I
Yeah.
haven't heard of anybody else doing that. So I like
We
the
actually
It's different.
We actually sponsor with Avo. It's called Tiny Ruby Conf in Helsinki. So they are the organizers of Yoruko 2020, I think. So they said the same thing. Like we're gonna have like two spots for like $1,000 or 1,500 or whatever. And we said like whenever I saw that, I said, okay, this is my time to pay it back. Like okay, we want to
Mm.
sponsor and whatever. So
Yeah.
it's not a big effort. And I think it's another thing to think about is like what kind of event are you planning? Like if it's a big one, like companies, for example, when they sponsor Euroco or RailsConf, they usually they want to hire
Hmm.
because that's a big pool of developers you're going to get in
Hmm.
front of a lot of eyes. And of course, you're
Yeah.
going to make a big deal. Like it's going to cost 10, 15, 25, 60, $50,000 and whatever. You're going to have a booth and people there and
Hmm.
training and everything. When it's a small conference, we actually last year we did have booths for two of our sponsors, but like it was nice, but they weren't at the booth every time. The booths were open, I think, in the first day, and then they mingled because with 100 people, you're gonna get to know everybody.
Hmm.
Half of them are you're gonna demo maybe at the booth, and half of them you're gonna talk with them in the crowd. So you
Yeah.
got to figure out what's in it for them. So what we say is like, hey, do you want to have a friendly brand, and do you want to align your brand with a friendly brand? Like something, and some people
Yeah.
feel that and say, okay, yeah, we want to do that. Like we see that you're doing an amazing, community work,
Hmm.
and we want to help with that.
Nice. I love that. Alrighty. So you mentioned earlier that you did a lot of research by just touring all these conferences the year before you did your first friendly. How was that? And like, did you learn anything? Did you steal any ideas from other conferences that you brought back for your first one? How was that?
Oh, ton of learning. That's a big learning experience because you learn the things that you want to do, and you learn about the things that you don't want to do.
Yeah.
That's another thing. Like you're gonna see, like I remember, like I went to conferences, people, mumble down the stage, or it took a long time to like, make the switch between the presenter and the actual speaker. And like I wrote that down, like in my mind, like, okay, we have to make that switch fast. And then like, okay, I kind of saw that you gotta have a place where people can evacuate the room and kind of have some talks and whatever. I made a note of that. And then, the drinks and maybe the food and maybe activities and everything. Like it's a big learning, experience. It would be a lie to say I didn't steal some of those ideas. Like, of course not.
Yeah.
One of the
Borrowed.
things that well, sorry,
You borrowed the ideas. Yeah. We
borrowed.
shouldn't say
Yeah,
steal. It's, we're
of course.
sharing.
No, it's okay. It's okay. Like we've been seeing some of our ideas, pop up in the community. That's fine. That's
Mm.
all good because it's all, in the community. So it's all
Yeah,
for
it's all
everyone. So
positive impact. Yeah.
exactly, exactly. And one of the things that I really did was I kind of enjoyed, I actually loved the showmanship of Andy's. Like we're getting back to Andy Kroll. Like, hey, Andy, if you see this, and I wanted to do the same thing, like be like friendly and talk about. We talked about the code of conduct in the beginning, in the opening, and everything. So a lot of that showmanship, and it's not just a Ruby conference. So a different, for example, of Wrocław, it's a very technical conference. You go there, you're going to be in this auditorium in the informatics like university, the computer science university. Everybody's doing like hard deep Ruby talks
Yeah.
and discussions, and that's a nice one, but I didn't want to do it like that. And we had people that spoke about mental health, about the history of Roma people. I'm gonna bring like we had dancers last year, like traditional Romanian dancers. Like
I've
I
heard
wanted to
about
make a
that.
show out of it. Like this is my opportunity to show people a good time and also learn. Like we have amazing speakers, but also show people a good time. So, I wanted to do that. So
Yeah.
it was a different type of event.
That's really cool. I did want to get into that because I think that I want to do that as well. Like I like the technical conferences where it's just talks, one after another for the whole time. You learn a lot, you get inspired by other people, but I think that something that makes conferences more memorable is the stuff that happens besides the talks. And
Yeah.
I heard that you did dancing. I heard, did you have, I don't know if it happened last year or if you're planning for like hack spaces and like pair programming. Can you talk about some of the things that you're doing besides talks?
So this year we're gonna have Yaro came up with this idea. So last year and the previous year, and me and Yaro we go to a lot of conferences together. Because he's an educator, he has this education channel, Super Rails, an education website with videos and everything. He talks to people about a lot of whatever he teaches in those videos. He does a lot of Hotwire Native now and Hotwire and whatever. And he did that unofficially at Friendly RB and other conferences. And now he said like, hey, I want to do like my like Super Rails office hours, like Super Rails hack space where people can come over and we can hack things together, that maybe Hotwire, Hotwire Native, whatever is, people want to do. And we want to do something like that. I know that RailsConf did it and RubyConf and Ruby Central does it. And that's like that's a big production. We're going to be with Avo and some of our other open source projects. We're going to be at this RailsConf and do the same thing. But that's a big, big production. They invite everyone and they do everything. We
Yeah.
can't do that. Yaro wants to do it. I said perfectly. Like I'm gonna help you. I'm gonna bring you a TV and whatever. We're gonna do it with Avo because Paul is gonna be there. So it's a low hanging fruit. So we're gonna do that. If anybody else wants to do it, like we're gonna figure out something because we're like this kind of open. Like we can do that, but it's not that big hack spaces kind of thing. Otherwise, the dancing, that was a surprise. I wanted to do that. I wanted to do something special. We're gonna have a few surprises this year as well. I don't wanna spill the beans right now, but we're
Okay,
gonna have a few
okay.
surprises as well. But every year I try to do at least one thing interesting because I don't know, I just feel that people that are coming back, they want to see some novelty as well to
Yeah.
get some value as well out of it.
Yeah, definitely, definitely. Like
Yeah.
you remember the people that you meet, and you remember the things that happened. And I'm always inspired by the talks, but I can't tell you which talks I went to
Yeah.
at
Yeah.
RailsConf 2 years ago, but I
Yeah.
can remember like some of the conversations that I had with people or the people that I met, you know.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's always a nice thing to add to conferences.
So if there's one thing that I want to tell you and everybody that wants to do a conference, is try to create the environment for people to get together and to open up. For
Hmm.
us, one of the biggest ones were like, we had long breaks, not a fixed schedule. That's another thing. We had the day one activity, so going and throughout the city, a lot of people got to chat there. And the third day activity, which was a full day in the mountains, everybody told me like, hey, oh my God, we had so much, like I bonded with so many people and we had this amazing opportunity that we couldn't have any other way. Like when would I get to meet, uh, Jeremy Smith and talk to him
Hmm.
about like his family and how we do things and how he does things. And you're never going to have that like for a full day, right? So try to create these opportunities for people to get together and do all of that. Jason did something at Sin City Ruby which was amazing. It was very Jason-y. He had a Ruby script which with everybody's names, and he created like groups of like 4 or 5 people or 6 people, and he called it forced socialization. And you got
Yeah,
together and said, okay, for 5 minutes, 10 minutes, whatever, you're going to talk about something personal. It was a little bit forced, but whatever. It was, Jason. It was Sin City. Whatever. He can do whatever he
yeah.
wants. So that was a good thing. At first, it was a little bit cringe, but I found out like a few amazing things about some people from the community, which I wouldn't have been able to do because when you get to RailsConf, whatever, or I don't want to point fingers, but when you're going to a big conference and you have this large hall, it's not gonna, get to go to a person like, hey, Travis, how's your family? What's
Yeah,
up with you? Like, you're not gonna do that. It takes a while to get to that spot, right? To that
yeah,
place. So try to think about creating these kind of moments where people can get together and they can actually share from their lives.
yeah. I think that's another thing that's like, you know, like Sin City is, I think last year it was like 80 people or something. You know, that some people are like, oh, I want to sell like 200, 300, 500 tickets, but it's actually we need the regional conferences that are smaller because those are so much easier to meet people. It's so much less intimidating in a room of 80 people to just sit down next to somebody and say, "Hi, my name is Travis,"
Yep.
versus like a Rails conf where it's a auditorium of 1,000 people and you walk in, everybody's already kind of in groups, like everybody's there with their company or whatever, and
Yep.
it's a lot harder to meet people. You have to try a lot harder and you have to be a lot braver at those conferences. But at the small ones, that environment is nice. I think that's kind of the point of the small ones is like you said, making that open space for people to meet and just be social. Yeah, so I love that. Definitely going to focus on that for the conferences that I hopefully put on. Um, okay, cool. Let's see what other questions I had here. Um, can you think of, I always ask everybody this because we get some interesting answers. Can you think of a small thing that you did that had an outsized or unexpected impact on the conference? Like something that you just did, you threw in there and you didn't even think about it. And then later people were like, I love that you did that thing. And you're like, wow, I almost didn't do that because I didn't think it was important.
Yeah, there was one thing. So, and it's the not non-fixed schedule.
Mm,
So what I do in the beginning of the day, I go through like, hey, this is what we're gonna do today. And what I did, I didn't even, put my mind to it. It just happened. I said, we're gonna start at 10. We're gonna have three talks, break at 12 or I don't know, 1. We're gonna have 2 hours of a break. We can go for lunch, and then another 3 hours, of talks and breaks, but not scheduled. It's not like, okay, from 10 to 10:30 and then a break, and then from
mm,
10:45 to whatever. No, no, no. We'll figure that out. And what happened was people were just, they went for breaks, very long breaks, 30 minutes. And when I was coming into that, that hole to actually, bring people in to like, okay, it's time for the next talk. Come on, everybody was
uh,
like so into it. I kind of felt, a little bit bad, as getting into their conversations. Everyone was having so many conversations, and um, that was a good thing. And I remember Xavier came to me. I think in the first day and said like, "Oh my God, that is an amazing idea that you did without like having a fixed schedule. Just leave it loose and everything." And then that's when it clicked with me like, okay, yeah, that was a good idea. That was really nice.
Yeah, that's cool. I haven't heard of that at other conferences either, so I like that one. And it definitely Sin City Ruby, I think kind of I reference that a lot because I've only been to a couple conferences, but that one was kind of like that where he was pretty lax with the schedule and he just kind of let things flow. And I think people do appreciate that and having those longer breaks too allows people to get into their conversations. Whereas like if you only have 15 minutes in between, sometimes people won't even start a conversation because they're just going to like check their phone and their email really
Yep.
quick and maybe go to the bathroom and then it's the next talk.
Yep.
And then you don't have maybe the opportunities to actually get people to say, well, I have 30 minutes. I might as well go start a conversation with somebody. So
Yeah.
yeah, that is really nice. Um, is there any is there any piece of advice that you would give to anybody doing their first conference? Anything off the top of your head that maybe we haven't covered, or anything that you want to talk about that we haven't covered?
It's a very, open-ended question. I think the answer that comes to my mind is try to be intentional with what you're trying to do. So if you want to make a nice regional, friendly, cozy conference, do that. If you want to do something bigger, okay, do that, but tell people about it. But be intentional. Like, at some point we were, thinking, what happens if we sell more than 140 tickets? Where do we have to find a bigger venue? Like, we were asking the wrong questions. So try to be intentional about what you're doing and try to do that thing in a nice way. So, if it's a regional small conference and you can do it on a lower budget, okay, do that one package of sponsorship. It's going to be easier for you to do that. Do the activities because people are going to appreciate those. And also do the marketing a little bit. Like I said, we didn't advertise, but actually, whenever, like, I think, like a month before, 3 months before, like I got on in front of a camera. I said, like, hey, this is what these are the updates. We have three new speakers, and we're going to do this, and we're going to have this surprise. Like, tell people about that because that's how people are going to find out about the activities and everything else that you're, planning to do. Yeah, and be intentional about it and tell people about what you're going to do.
Yeah, definitely. Is there anything that you can give away maybe for your upcoming friendly this year that you're excited about, or anything maybe that you like changed that you're trying out?
Um, One thing that every year I'm excited about that, and then once it ends, I'm I'm like afraid of what's gonna. So every year we have a very nice lineup for a conference of our size. We have speakers that you won't see in too many places, or you haven't seen them before. Um, and then at the end of the conference, my question, like every time I'm afraid, like, what are we going to do next year? So, the lineup, I'm very excited about this year's lineup. One thing that we're going to do different, mm, I don't know. I think the mountain trip on the third day, we have more, like we usually had like 25, 30 people. Now we have 30 people and we still have a few months until the event. So we're probably going to have more. So we're probably going to rent a bus or something to do that. We'll figure it out. But no, I think we're just going to go with the flow. It's nothing very, we do have some surprises, but again, I don't want to talk about that. But
Gotcha.
yeah, it's going to be good. It's going to be an amazing experience.
Cool. One question I forgot to ask. Do you have any favorite conferences that you've been to and why?
So yeah, I think Sin City Ruby is one of the so it was the first conference that I got FOMO over not going. Like it wasn't RailsConf, it wasn't Yuruko, it was Sin City. Everybody had so much fun. Andrew Culver rented a limo and got people like went around the Las Vegas and like everybody sounded like they had so much fun. And that's what I wanted to do. Like people show people a good time. So Sin City Ruby definitely. I enjoyed Rail SAS in Athens. We went like the one activity that I organized after the conference. We went to an island. We rented mopeds and convertibles, and we went to the beach. And it was just a nice overall experience. But every conference that we go, like I go to and some of my friends go to, I try to make it memorable in some way. We do some activities in between, after or whatever. I try to do something to make it memorable. So every conference has like a special place in my heart.
Awesome. Yeah. I hope that I can get to Friendly one year. It's a long trip, so I'm not going to make it this year, but I hope I can make it in the future because I really do love the intentionality that you put into organizing and the care that you put into the conference. So I'm sure I'm speaking on behalf of the community. Thank you for doing what you do and putting on the conference and to all the people that help you as well. And you're coming to RailsConf this year, right?
Yes, I'm gonna be there next week. So it's gonna
Awesome.
be
I
awesome.
hope to see you there.
Of course,
All
in the
right.
sea of people.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. All right. Well, thank you for the time, and we'll see you around.
Awesome, Travis. Thanks for having me.